very proud to be Lebanese. It's a beautiful country. We have beautiful people. We have beautiful scenery, excellent food, and we just love life. And this is why we have persisted and insisted and continue to fight for life and for our survival.
But still, Lebanon is the best country in the world. Lebanon is always in my heart, and really it's the top place to visit.
Beirut is the capital and largest city of Lebanon. When I speak of Beirut, I remember the Bible, the cedars, the culture, the peace, the gathering, the elegance, the nightlife, and the delicious food. The atmosphere is very pleasant in his 4 seasons. I was very happy without thinking of any bad ideas concerning the future. Right now, Lebanon is still a very beautiful country, but a lot of things changed. I'm dominated by fear and insecurity about my future and the future of my beloved ones.
انت من لبنان، بتحبي لبنان؟
أيوة بحب لبنان.
She said she loves Lebanon.
مش فاكرة.
مش فاكرة. Yes.
أيوة فكرت حلو.
She said it's beautiful.
الصنوبر نروح نجيب صنوبر وكذا.
So my grandmother, Salwa Laham, was born in Lebanon. She was raised in Beirut, Lebanon, on a farm, like on the outskirts of Beirut. And now, unfortunately, she has dementia, so it's harder for her to recall specific memories or specific things about her past life, but she does still connect greatly with Lebanon. It's a place that she loves, she adores, she longs to be back there all the time. And Beirut has been known for its city life, its nightlife, its liveliness in general. And so much culture and creativity has been cultivated in Beirut for so long, and I feel as though it's slowly being forgotten that it once was this beautiful blossoming city that gave home to so many beautiful people and a beautiful culture, a beautiful heritage. But the decay and morale that we're seeing now, it can't be just chalked up to the people itself. There's many reasons that have impacted the morale of the country. You know, the economic crisis the country's been facing for a while, the civil wars that have that's I guess started 50 years ago or so, over that, the COVID-19 pandemic, the recent explosion at the port in Beirut where it receives its imports, and finally, basically just the negligence of party leaders and political leaders of the country.
Having shaped the boundaries of Lebanon, France left the region in the hands of the locals in 1942. Beirut instantly fell in a political crisis, with different factions competing for influence and control. By the mid-1970s, the power vacuum reached its tipping point. Disenfranchised minorities took up arms and plunged the country in total war. Christians, Muslims, Druze, and their respective denominations fought against each other in one of the densest battle spaces in existence. The conflict was a struggle that would define a nation's destiny. Soon enough, secularists, communists, ethnic minorities, rogue militias, and outright warlords joined the fight in what would become one of the most confusing armed conflicts in the 20th century.
Definitely, the atmosphere has changed a lot. Indeed, after many years of war, Syrian and Israeli occupation, the political people became corrupt. So now, because of corruptions and mismanagements of all successive governments, Lebanon is experiencing the worst economic crisis in its history.
The economic crisis affect me, affect my family, and affect everyone live in Lebanon. Why? Due to the increase of the amount of Lebanese pound versus the dollar. Before, $1 equal 1,500. Now, $1 equal 13,000 Lebanese pound. Let me give you an example. My salary was $2,000. Now, my salary is $240. All the supermarkets, all the stores, all the car stations increased all their items referral to the dollar.
All the Lebanese people were affected by this crisis, economic crisis. Before this crisis, the governor of the Bank of Lebanon encouraged all the Lebanese to put their money in Lebanese pound instead of US dollar by giving them very high interest. But suddenly, all the banks closed and the people could no longer withdraw their money. So, can you imagine? No money, no bank account. In addition, the US dollar rises from 1,500 to almost 12,000 Lebanese pound per dollar. It's terrible. All the Lebanese were affected.
Can you just walk us through what's going on here with the standard of living comparatively to, let's say, 1 to 2 years ago before the banking system collapsed and everything, and where you see Lebanon going?
Lebanon has been always a conflict country since the 70s, the late 70s. After the end of the civil war in 1991, after 30 years, we came to a point that Lebanese people living in a 10,452 kilometer square country, which is barely noticed on the map of the world, we've got a debt of $100 billion. We've got no electricity, we don't have decent insurance. Politicians are fighting among each other all the time. Who is the group that are affected by this? Is us, people living in this country. And you know about the Syrian crisis, and you know about the Palestinian crisis. We are hosting hundreds of thousands of Palestinians since 1948. and also started hosting Syrians since 2011. We've got so many guests, and they are more than welcome, because my mom and my wife is Palestinians. The leaders are not doing anything properly to secure us and to secure anyone who's living on this ground. People.
It's very hard for me to describe the Lebanese government in a politically correct and polite way. We are aggressively opposed to what we call a Lebanese regime. To me, it's not a government, as by definition, this is not what a government stands for, and therefore we do not see the current regime as a government. We do not have a democracy. We have never been able to be involved in fair elections. We have never been able to voice our opinions in the sense of freedom of speech. And we've never had a turnover of new politicians because we can't vote, and because the politicians work through a very patriarchal system where their positions are constantly renewed without elections or are passed down to their sons. So the way that I would describe the Lebanese regime is that they are definitely out for themselves. They have zero empathy. They are complete sociopaths, and they have not just contributed, but they are leading on the absolute, demise of an entire nation. We have absolutely liquidated all of our funds because of their spending and because of their debts. And in addition to that, they have also restricted us and the people from using their own money in the banks because our central bank has gone bankrupt due to their spending. And so they are now relying on the people's funds in order to continue to live the lives that they live, and in order to even process anything in the country, like electricity, like water, like traffic control, and so on.
On August 4th, this warehouse in Beirut, Lebanon caught fire. When the fire spread through the building, this happened.
All of a sudden, I could hear glass shattering, and then there was dust everywhere.
The fire detonated about 2,700 metric tons of ammonium nitrate, a highly explosive material that was stored here in the port of Beirut. The explosion leveled the port and left a zone of destruction 6 miles wide, killing nearly 200 people and wounding thousands.
So its explosion just turned into what resembles, frankly, like a war zone. It was catastrophic. I still can't get the pictures out of my head to this day.
Every single day, somebody else is being died. For Lebanon, this was just one more catastrophe to an already perfect storm.
I was shocked. I was wondering what happened. Am I going to die? How I'm going to die? I was so happy, like all the other girls. I'm getting married. My parents are gonna be happy seeing me in a white dress. I'll be looking like a princess and everything. I feel so sad about what happened to other people, about what happened to Lebanon. When I woke up and I saw the damage that happened to Beirut, the one thing I said was, Alhamdulillah, we're still alive.
As for the explosion, I was in full force to care and help the injured and dead people. Nowadays, people cannot access easily to health care due to the increasing of the insurances payment. They are high, very high, than their salaries.
While at first it appeared to be an accident, the blast turned out to be the result of this dysfunctional system. According to reports, the ammonium nitrate sat in the port for 7 years, while government officials bickered over who was responsible for it.
It's criminal negligence at best. They knew what this was, they knew what it meant, and yet this material, it was left to language in Beirut's port.
نحن مش طموحنا بس استقالة الحكومة، استقالة العهد كله سوا.
يعني حتى حل المجلس النيابي بالأكمل، حتى رئيس الجمهورية ما بقى بدنا إياه.
To make matters worse, there's been a spike in coronavirus cases since the blast. And now, with its only major port destroyed in the explosion, Lebanon is struggling to import what its people need to survive.
So all of these complications started, and one day a big blast explosion happened and things became more and more complicated. So that explosion, as I've seen in some reports, it topped up $15 billion on the $100 billion debt
already
that we've got.
existing debt. So you've got $115 billion debt.
Yeah.
Your banking system's collapsed and everybody's savings is frozen and they can't access the money that they've saved their whole life.
100%.
People can't afford to buy groceries. We've met a few people today who would have normally sold all their stock and all their produce, or the butchers, they would have sold that in the morning. They're still sitting there with table full of food.
Yeah, that's right. This explosion, one of its side effects, this is the main vein of importing to Lebanon.
For people watching at home to understand is that Lebanon is mainly an importing country for its supplies, its food and medicine. It's not really self-sustainable in that manner.
No, unfortunately it's not. What's happening is we are consuming what we have, what we are storing.
And it's running out.
And it's running out. Food, medicine, wheat, you name it.
Yeah.
All supplies we are consuming. What will happen next?
Many people are just thinking about throwing in the towel and walking out. If they can, if they're lucky enough to have the opportunity. Majority of people can't just leave, right?
That's right.
Most people can't.
So smugglers are like taking people through the sea. Of course, this is illegal, trying to take them out, and they pay loads of money for that. But what's happening? They're losing their lives. They're dying.
So basically a country which has been well known for being one of the highest receivers per capita of refugees. The people in that country, the educated people who have taken in the refugees, you know, we're talking well-off people, have become the refugees. The people who used to take the refugees have now become the refugees.
That's right. Our future, to tell you the truth, I'm not very optimistic. Not in the coming at least 5 years. At least.
In this moment, maybe all Lebanese hope to flee the country, but nobody can leave in this moment. Nobody. They don't have money. They don't have bank account, so nobody can leave unless those who have fresh money.
Thousands of Lebanese took to the streets. The protests were in response to proposed new austerity taxes, but quickly grew into more widespread anger at Lebanon's stagnant economy, public sector corruption, and the failings of the country's political establishment.
كلها هيدا تعبيط كلها داير من دار كلنا كنا متأملين لأنه اللي كان الزخم اللي كان موجود والغضب اللي عند الناس وخلص كلنا أكلناها كلنا ما بقى في حدا يعني.
Nahida Khalil, a civil society activist, was one of the demonstrators. She recalls how the authorities and their supporters were uncompromising.
ما خلوا شيء ما عملوه بالأخير صاروا يقلبوا الناس علينا صاروا الناس يقولوا لك الثوار يمرقوا بيحكوا ضدنا صرنا كل ما نتظاهر صار مثل باترن تخلص بتكسير وقنابل مسيلة للدموع والناس تعبت الناس ما في الانهيار الاقتصادي وصلوا الناس على الأرض.
So I've been involved in protests more or less ever since I was 14 or 15 years old, and then onwards. We experienced a lot of assassinations, starting with one of our first prime ministers, Rafiq al-Hariri, and since then We've been protesting, first of all, for the Syrian occupation to end. And then second of all, we've continued to protest against the assassinations that took place of several journalists and several party members. And we have asked for there to be investigations into their assassinations, of which we have never actually received any for. We have revolted and protested for justice. We have protested for women's rights. We have protested for fair elections. We have protested for basically every single thing you can think of under the moon. And these basic human rights have left us at a bottleneck of which we can do nothing but protest. And this results in us getting beat up. This results in, us getting heavily under fire, with just gas bombs. And at that point, it's somewhat effective because it does raise our voices on the media and especially in global news. But at the same time, I'm not sure how effective it's been in recent months because we don't have proper leadership even in the streets. We don't have proper leadership even when it comes to our revolution. And we don't have proper leadership in any uprising in recent weeks because every revolution, every protest does need there to be a sense of organization. There does need to be a sense of premeditation, of planning. And that's something in the heat of the moment and in the rise of emotions that we experience that we don't always have. And it's very hard to create amongst a society that is just so broken. I've always tried to raise awareness about how people outside of Lebanon can help and can contribute to having there be a more constructive, more constructive growth for Lebanon. And that's one, it's raising awareness 110%. Go to the Lebanese embassies in your state, reach out to congressmen, reach out to statesmen, reach out to NGOs, reach out to influencers, try to reach any shape, way, or form of a megaphone, whether online or offline, to speak up for us, to advocate for us. Anyone with enough power to, put their foot down and have the courage to reach out even to these horrible politicians and try to implement change. I hope that the global community will not forget us. I hope that they see what an effect everything that happens in Lebanon will have, not just on the region, but on the entire world. And I hope for a lot of things.
It's hard for somebody from where I'm from to comprehend the hardships that you face, and then on top of that you've got the economy, which is dropping. And they're predicting a famine this year. So how do you keep going?
We have to have faith in ourselves. We have to be strong because life is not doesn't have mercy for us. We have to have faith in ourselves and keep going. We have to keep walking.
Right.
If we stop in our places, we die. Keep climbing every time we fail, we have to get up again and try again till our death.
In the end, I hope peace and tranquility dominate our life in Lebanon.
The love of our land and the love of life that we have just cannot be muted. It cannot be diminished. We try to spread that love wherever we go. That's why there are so many Lebanese people all around the world. And I hope a lot of them actually are able to come home and create a country that we've all dreamed of having. Thank you so much.